The thing that you really need to pay attention to, this is what we're going to talk about today, is how can you gain leverage financially once you get into the fight game? That's our conversation in part two of this series. Well, what we try to do, let me make sure I don't cut the audio off like I did yesterday. The thing that we're trying to do and that we're going to accomplish in this series, which is based all about prize fighting in the game of combat across the board. The fact of the matter is this: we host a bevy of mixed martial artists, professional fighters, trainers, gym owners that all have one thing in common. How do they bring value to the people that are coming into their set, gyms, or basically their organizations, and create success for these people? No one in this business wants to have minimal success. So how does this look? This is what we're going to get into today on this show. But before I get started, I'd like to introduce myself. I am Eric A. Bradley, coach, that is, and I teach boxing from a professor's standpoint these days. I've had a 3-decade tenure. I've done so much for aiding people and doing my service in this sport. And as we move forward in this series, you will learn how much or how many layers are within this sport that are totally invisible to the naked eye. So let's get into it. What is it that a fighter usually will not pay attention to whenever they get into the sport of boxing or in mixed martial arts? They do not realize the team that it will take for them to have to assemble. Why? Because they're in love with what they see happening in that either ring or octagon. And what we have to really be conscious of is the many layers of things that go on around it to make those events happen. There is no event more difficult to put on, and I'm including the Super Bowl, than a fight, period. There's so many different layers to it. I can tell you a quick story that will make you realize that what I'm saying has validity. The Chamber of Commerce wanted to put on $1 million event where they do a charity event called Fight Night. Many of you who are versed in boxing or the fight game understand what that is. It's where you get a lot of people who are past their time, like the Larry Holmes, the Evander Holyfields. You get people who are Roy Jones, who are past their mark. Tim Witherspoon, special shouts out to Tim. When these guys get to a certain point in their life, hey, they want to collect off of what they've done for the sport. And so the charity of people who are outside of the sport, you gather these individuals and you sell tables from upwards of $1,500 to $50,000. And your efforts are to raise charitable donations to whatever organization they decide to do it, whether it's St. Christie or if it could be St. Jude's, it could be breast cancer. It's always for something good. Everyone, Senator Dole of North Carolina, her team was on this committee to do this, put one on. And the tricky thing about this is we had silent auctions, people who were specialized in every area inside of this thing where we would gather all of these athletes to put on a show for these. It's a black tie event now. Trust me, this is something that most people want to be a part of. If they're raising money and funds for you, you want to be a part of one of these events. This is what was so miraculous about it. As we did the checks and balances, there are pages that people were paying attention to. Line by line, we were going. It was a table full of us. It's like 15 people, maybe 20. were putting on these, going down the checklist. When it came down to it was the silent auction. It was all of these different people contributing what their services were and raising money efforts. But when it came to boxing, when we pulled out our pamphlet, the checklist was pages and the writing was small, so it looked like a dictionary. And the people on the committee, and I'm talking about people who do politics, and you got people who are from the field of law, and you got people who do fundraisers at a big level, put on concerts. And when it came down to the checklist of boxing, they were like, this is insane, because the checklist is so crazy. So a lot of promoters will dance around this, and sometimes they're not really good at wording things. Even people as good as Eddie Hearns, when it comes down to wording, how difficult it is to put on an event of the magnitude of just maybe a 5,000 seat arena that we were going to do that time, maybe 7,000. But just to think about it, how much goes into it. Medical, vendors and all that stuff. So many different tiers of the medical and things like that. You got sanctioning bodies, you got all of these different moving pieces, and they absolutely just was like, they had to throw me the Hail Mary. They were like, hey, could you really be in charge of this part? Because I'm really good. I'm good at events. I'm great at raising money and building and drawing in sponsors, people who just are going to put money to it. I had already raised upwards of $100,000 on my own. And the fact of the matter is, people think about this and they don't really think deeply about it, because you must understand, what are you actually a part of when you are in the boxing community. The world of combat offers so many layers that you don't know about. Now, when you are an athlete and you're trying, and even if you're a coach, because if you have an athlete, you need to pay attention to these things that will aid them in gaining leverage financially in this sport. You have promoters that need to get, basically, they just want to level up. They want to get back to zero. Basically, if I can get back to even, I'll keep putting on these events. I just don't want to lose money. Fighters, you're going to want money. If you want money, I was speaking yesterday to one of our fighters who had a pay-per-view event. We didn't know it was pay-per-view until the day of. You have to utilize your circle, your leverage. If you have people of influence in an industry leader, in myself, you have to know that you have to utilize that. Why? Because on this side, you see the School of Boxing on this platform, on this overlay. And then on the other side, you see Top Trainer U. And in the top corner, right over here, you see Prize Fighter U. You have to go to school basically to learn that when you have a promoter, you have to know what that promoter's narrative is. They're never there to just make a killing. Jerry Jones owns the Dallas Cowboys. One of my business mogul partners, and his company is on the Dow Jones, told me that football NFL owners don't make profit. Those facilities are used for business cachet. It's just the flex, but they tie their money into a place because you need to have your money in something, or if not, taxes will take it. And so therefore, that was an education to me. The only industries that make a lot of money when you have those television contracts, and we're talking about the Yankees and Notre Dame football. These people have a built-in, capital gains set up inside of what their contract deal is. The other teams do not. It looks a certain way, but it's not. If you understand capital and how to get in the circle of capital, Capital is basically knowing where the money is. I just learned the past 24 hours that Sylvester Stallone owns a house that's $38 million, $38.78 million right here. Okay. That's not living, that's knowing the game. Okay. And for those of you who understand capital and capital gains, you understand what I just said. Because guys, when you're doing that, when you start buying 10, 20, $30 million homes, $50 million homes, you're not living anymore. You're what you have an operation of knowing how to disperse your capital. You're playing the game. The United States has a game, and it's like pinball. You know how to move money around, you know how to make money. And this is what we have to teach our athletes. Athlete, you're going to need a promoter that's willing to say, you have a place that can drive money to us. We got to show you the conference room to have a conversation. So what I mean by this is that if you have a company backing you like that has the influential impact we do, you automatically have built-in pay-per-view levels to raise what your value is. You bring value to them then, because the work that they have to do, which is why I told you the story about that fundraiser at the beginning, is because you have to help them raise funds so they can pay you what you feel like you are worth. I worked with a promoter, and I also was shoulder to shoulder with this individual during training, and basically an advisor on top of that. He put on shows after shows after shows. We have the record for most attendance. Now, granted, we had Hector Camacho on that card, and he's not that hard to sell. But the fact of the matter is this: we still hold the record, and that's been like 15 years, 20 years almost ago, right? And it's all about knowing how to get people to your events that you do not expect or typically wouldn't show up. Like I want writers there. I want people with big followings there. I want people who will spread the word. I want people that run and own companies and industry leaders. And that's what I did to get those numbers. I brought people in the fight game that were not inside of the fight game. I sold tables for $30,000 for that fundraiser. I sold 2 tables for $15,000 equaling 30 for 2 people that weren't even going to be there. They just gave us the money. This is what I mean by circles and knowing where the money at to support what the promoter is trying to do. Instead of having the promoter be your enemy, you have to let the promoter be your friend. And I'm talking break bread with them, know who they are. Eddie Hearn does a good job with the people that are close to the top, because there's not enough time in the day or the month or the year to eat and hang out with everybody. Okay. But perform well, drive numbers, then you get on the radar screen, because at the levels in which the top operate, they don't see the people below that level because there's so much that they need to pay attention to on this level. So stop being invisible and be visible. And the best way to be visible is bring networks of people to your event that will not be a part of it. So have a circle of friends that you truly, truly believe have your back, because most of the time you have to make sure that there's something in it for them. This is an entire game. Everybody's playing the triangle offense. And so whenever you have a promoter, the way that you get their attention is through numbers. Look at what Terrence Crawford did. He fills the arenas when he's fighting at home. That makes HBO, when he was there, pay attention. That made Top Rank pay attention. That made ESPN pay attention. That puts you in the right places, in the right circles. So now you have what we call power, more leverage. The key is never allowing yourself to get lazy or take things personal. You're going to need management because you have to have guidance in areas of things that you do not know. There's constantly too many people reaching out to the page talking about they want to be a fighter or they want to take fights and they have none of the other stuff checked off the boxes. We call you invisible to the sport. And therefore, you're going to be invisible to the promoter. And therefore, you're going to get the bottom dollar, basically the bottom dollar of the budget used for that fight card. If you want to be seen, you got to do what you need to do. And that's why over here to this side, we have that top trainer university, which is to educate you. And I'm not up here selling it. Yes, I want your money because I know I'm going to make you follow the process based upon being in your face, doing these type streams, because the thing that you're missing is accountability fighters. So listen to the people that surround you. If you don't have people surrounding you, you will never evolve in this sport, because I can guarantee you one thing: if you do not have numbers, you will be invisible like the man. Okay? If you want leverage, you got to do numbers. Look at exactly how Canelo walks around. Period. He walks around like he belongs. Big support back to you. Look at how Anthony Joshua walks around. Thank you, sir. I appreciate you. My man, Tev. It's good to see you, man. We appreciate you. We work hard because we understand that this game right here has been passed down to this generation, to the people who are in front and who are not invisible, who do understand the complexity and the behind the scenes of the sport of boxing. So this series is specific to, we got fighters out there who are delusional and uneducated. And so we have to educate them. I do not like what it takes to do these setup shows. It takes so much. And look at it. It's professional. This is a $35,000 set. I'm going to do a behind the scenes so you guys understand what goes into this. I'm just not some dude popping up an iPhone. I am rocking with Sony A6400 that I'm looking through. Everything is spot on network. And the reason why is because we have to take what we are doing and show you we make sacrifices. This is a lot of work. It takes days prep. And I looked at several of the shows that I'd done over the summer and over the fall, and I just was in disbelief because it happens so fast. And boxing happens so fast. Your career where you can actually do something and make some noise, it happens so fast. You're either going up the hill, which is going up levels, or you are plateauing, going downhill. One of the young men that I had on the cover was the first winner in a reality series in boxing, Otis Griffin. Special shouts out to Otis Griffin and his stable that he has out west. Those guys are doing good things. I want you people who are standing out in the game to support people who are doing things like galvanizing people and putting weight on their back. None of those guys that he is over understand what he has to stomach at night. You know why? Because when you're an athlete and you compete, you only think you're the only person that has issues. The thing about it is the people that do the business, they have quadruple the issues and problems. and they stomach it better. That's the fighter. Not only was he a winner in that series, put on Oscar De La Hoya, then fought on the Contender. Same thing. Real recognize real. I acknowledged this young man many, many, many years ago. And I said, that kid got the real deal. And he played for the Ravens. So it tells you he's a total athlete. So special shouts out to my man, Otis Griffin, former WBO world champion, the first to turn the page on reality TV, becoming victorious on something that was totally new to us. But Otis has stayed true to us. So, like I said, all of the people out there in the combat world, special shouts out to my brother Peter McNeely. Of course, he was Tyson's first bout when Tyson got out of prison. And Peter he's such a great supporter. And you guys galvanize around these guys who paved the way and opened the doors for you, because he came out of Massachusetts blazing a trail and continue to be a voice in the sport of boxing. You hear me? Good person. All of these people play a kind of role that you have no idea the difficulty. So if you guys are under the tutelage of any of these guys, you better stay clear of thinking that you're the only one with problems and learn how to build leverage. Financial leverage is a real thing. I would usually bullet you with a bunch of overlays and, video clips of things during this show like we were ESPN. But the reality and the fact of the matter is this series here is going to be raw and authentic. There are people that you got to have in your corner. You have to have mentorship. You have to have a coach. You have to have a trainer. You need to find people that are willing to educate you on what to intake in your body, because that trainer is not that same person. And so for that's what we make sure you guys are really clear on, because it's going to be a rocky road trying to learn on the job. Now, tomorrow's show is going to cover the difference between coaches and cornermen. How I bounce this around and make it clear to you is a lot of fighters today are changing cornermen. We're watching guys with world titles change cornermen right now. I won't even say names. The reason being is because the same guy that coaches you at the gym does not necessarily have the same ability to coach you as a cornerman. Those are two different professions. And a lot of people didn't know that because they didn't. 3T is what we call think things through. And that is my challenge to you. And for those of you who have not connected with us, make sure you do. If you fight, we want to know who you are. No, I'm not going to have you on the show because it's too much work and you got to learn how to earn your spot. Start doing numbers, and I'm going to help groom you. That's when you stop being invisible. If I didn't have 200,000 people just on one platform and 300,000 on another and a million and million and a million, like, no, well, real recognize real. If you understand talent, you understand that what we do over here isn't something that anybody can do. I had to generate 3 decades of knowledge. I had to write 22 books, and I had to create different programs for different scenarios in business of boxing, the athletics of boxing, skill sets of boxing, and understanding how to come in and play a role as your liaison in boxing. And so for that's what we're going to be chopping up. Every orifice of the sport of boxing and combat sport across the board, we will be covering. So coaches versus cornermen is tomorrow's segment. Yes, it's a lot on my plate, but it'll be a lot done. And I much rather think about the boxes check than the work that I have to put down. And maybe that'll condition you to take what you're doing to the next level and finally get your numbers and the team around you and have leverage. That's all I got for right now. For those of you who have never checked us out, thanks for taking the time to tune in. Until next time, I'll see you soon in the winner's circle, the School of Boxing. Special shouts out to my brothers in Top Trainer U. And I'll see you